So in this example, we're going to use a binary variable to not only control the upper limit on production, we are also going to use it to control a floor on production. So let's get into it. So Dorian Audio is considering production of 5 vehicle types, the resources required, and the profits are provided on the next tab. Currently there are 6,500 tons of steel, 65,000 labor hours available. If any vehicle of a given type is to be produced, the production of that vehicle must achieve a minimum number to be economically feasible. So Dorian wants to find the optimal production schedule to maximize profits. So let's go over here to the model, and we can see we've got vehicle types, steel in tons, labor hours, minimum production if there is a minimum production value, and the profit contribution per unit. So if we look at things, we're going to have a couple sets of decision variables here, and the first is type of car produced at least minimum. So basically this one here, this is going to be our binary variable. We're trying to figure out, should we produce at least the minimum? So this would be a binary variable. That's our decision, yes or no. And then we have our units produced. So this is going to be a numerical variable, but it is cars. We can't produce a half a car, so we are going to force this to be an integer variable. And so we do not have a upper limit on production, but we are going to have a lower limit on production. And so that means that if this decision is made, we are going to have to make a minimum threshold. So before we do that, let's couple of range names here. I'm going to do the upper limit on production, units produced, lower limit on production, and produce at least minimum. So this is our binary yes, no. And I'm going to control, and we want to do profit too. So formulas, create from selection, left column, and then I've got our constraints set up here, so we'll grab those two, create from selection, top row, okay. We'll just come over here, control B, range names, and then formulas, use in formula, paste names, paste list, all done. So that should be all the range names that we are going to use in this one. Okay, so let's go back. So we've got that minimum threshold here. I'm just going to put some ones in just so we have something. And that minimum threshold is just going to end up being our minimum production times our decision variable. I lost my time sign. By our decision variable. So you can see that if we are going to make compact cars, we have to make at least 1,000. And that will set things up for our units produced. Now we also have an upper limit on production. So since there is no upper limit on production, what's going to happen? Well, we need to put one in because we need to help solve or understand the relationship between the binary variable and the integer variable. So we're going to use that very large value z. And once again, 10,000 should be sufficient. Let's go through that comment. So 10,000 sufficient. Let's make this a variable. So formulas, create from selection, left column. Z is going to end in the end here, so let's go using formula, paste names. I'm just going to paste Z. We'll hit OK. Oh, and that doesn't work. That's not, I do have to paste the list. That's right. I always think that you can just paste in the one, and I always mess that up. So using formula, paste names, paste the whole list again. There we go. And so just like in the previous problem, the upper limit on production is just going to be whether or not we're producing cars in that line, and we're going to multiply it by that z value. And so I'm going to sit there and I'm going to drag that over. And so let's home, let's go into number, use 1,000 separator, no decimals, hit OK. Control C, highlight all this, right click, paste formatting, same thing here, paste formatting, make it all consistent. Paste formatting. I'm gonna hold Control. I'm going to grab all of this, and we're just going to paste formatting. So there we go. Got all of our little commas in there. And I lost the blue because I pasted the formatting, and it does the fill too. So let's go and see, what color blue was it? I'm actually not sure. So I'll come in here. We're going to copy. Actually, I'll just Control C and paste formatting. And I know this is going to give us the dollar signs, but we'll just go from currency to, I can't just go to number. So we'll go here and we'll go to number and fix that. Okay, so we got all that out of the way. Okay, so now we've got the formula set for what are going to be our production limits constraints. So let's just quickly put together our steel and labor hour constraints. So actually I'm going to go and actually we'll just center everything here. It's more a looks thing for myself. I like having the stuff centered when I'm doing this. So our resources available, it's going to have to be less than, whatever we use has to be less than or equal to whatever is available. So we'll just put those things in there. So how much steel are we going to use? Well, that's going to be a sum product of units produced times steel used. So I'll just highlight that. And then since I have our labor hours right underneath of it, I can just drag that down. And then we can see, just double check that. Good. That's exactly what we wanted. Control C, Control right click, paste, formatting. And so what's our profit going to be? That's just going to be sum product. Oops, not sum product. We'll highlight that, hit tab, and we'll do our units produced times our profit contribution per unit. So there we go. So we got we've got $0 right now. We'll just drop a 1 in there. There we go, 3,000 hours. So we've got everything set up. Let's actually plug it into Solver now. So we're going to go Data, Solver, and our objective. Our objective is to make the money. So we want the profit to go all the way up. We're going to change variables. We can change our binary variable. We'll hit comma, and our units produced. So we need both those. And so remember that binary variable and that Z value here, this is what helps Excel understand the relationship between the integer and the binary. So let's add some constraints. The lower limit of production has to be less than or equal to the amount of units that we produce. We'll say add. The units produced has to be less than or equal to the upper limit of production. Add. The resources used in the column has to be less than or equal to the available resources. And we'll say OK. And so I think that's all the constraints that we've got. We're looking for profit. We're going to try to produce at least the minimum. We're going to be able to choose to produce at least the minimum and the units produced. Lower limit of production is less than units produced. Resources used less than resources available. And units produced is less than the upper limit. And so that looks like everything that we've got. We will hit solve. And it found a solution. And we will hit OK. And so now we've come about this point and we get something is not working right. And because if I look at that, it's like, wait a second, lower limit on production is 87. So what did we mess up, or what did I mess up? So that should be 1,000 times 0. Okay, so I definitely forgot something. I must have, because that's not working out correctly. Let's go into Solver here. And you know, we look at these, I forgot to put in the binary and the integer constraint. I even wrote them down here and just completely slipped my mind. So let's go minimum produced and then binary. And see, this is actually useful to look at your model and go, wait a second, that doesn't look right. There's all zeros there. So I forgot my binary there, and I do need to add and make these, I need these to be integers. And say, okay. So I got my binary and my integer, so it should work this time. If it doesn't, we'll have to take a little bit greater look at it. Sit sol, hit OK, and there we go. Once again, just an example of why you need all this stuff to kind of tie together. And so this looks a little bit better now. We've got our produce a minimum of the compact cars for 1,000 of them, our minivan, and our large minivan. And let's start, okay, so let's actually pick apart what's going on. And once again, this video is getting a little bit long, so let's pause it here, and in the next video, we'll discuss what has happened here.